All right, excellent. Welcome, school committee members, members of the administration, guests. The time is 7:33 p.m. I'd like to call to order the June 24th, 2025 school committee special meeting held online on Google Meets. We do have a quorum present, so let's begin. This will be a virtual meeting, and it is going to be recorded by SMAC for future broadcasting. Since we have a quorum present, let's rise, if you're able, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, our first and only agenda item is the Triennial District Improvement Plan. We had a great presentation in the last meeting from Jonathan Ford and a variety of administrative guests to present the 4 different aspects of the plan. I'd like to open it up for school committee discussion at this time.
Well, I want to thank everyone for, because I know this was my request to have more time to review it. Really appreciate that. I had a question. So this is obviously a triennial plan every 3 years. Has anyone in the school committee who's been here longer than Jen and I, have you guys approved a triennial plan prior to this?
Yes, we have.
Okay. What was that process like?
Pretty much like this one, if I remember correctly. It was when I just joined, so it would be myself and Armando that would have that institutional memory, where there was a presentation. We were given a paper copy of it. There were some questions that were asked, and then we voted to approve.
Has there been any feedback from the previous plan from the town at all? Parents, teachers, anyone from that?
Not that I'm aware of. Jonathan?
Well, we actually collect feedback all the time from people. Mm-hmm. And the best example being in the last triennial plan, we had an ELE component. And this plan is actually a progression of that plan. Mm-hmm. We got feedback all the time from the LPAC and other stakeholders. That in particular, I would imagine with this particular plan, we'll get a lot of feedback from the CPAC and other groups that have an interest in what we're doing. But we don't necessarily go out and have full reviews of the triennial plan because it's more of an administrative plan.
Gotcha.
More like a school improvement plan. It's like a district-wide school improvement plan over multiple years.
What I really appreciated was, so I had actually went through Dr. Valleda's review, and I noticed a lot of similar alignment points to the triennial plan. So I was really happy that it looks like everything he's been working for is kind of been in this plan. The only things that I had kind of some questions on was more like staffing. It just sounds like there's gonna be a lot of challenge with the EL program. To find good teachers is a challenge of its own, and then to have bilingual teachers added on to that's a real challenge. What are the plans to recruit those types of people?
So we actually have the capacity and we have enough bilingual teachers in Portuguese to implement right now if we wanted to. Now that would not be ideal, obviously. Our longer term goal within that department is actually have everybody get both certifications. So have a world language certification if they have the capacity within a language, because you don't actually have to speak another language to be an ESL teacher. Fortunately for us, all but one of ours do. Also, in terms of recruiting, in that particular department, the ELA department, we've been very fortunate. And the people we've recruited, we actually have a pipeline, actually with a town in Brazil, where we've had some luck getting people that want to immigrate to the U.S. and teacher actually come on board. And we have the capacity to expand that relationship a bit in the future. Also, you've met Dr. Quealy.
I haven't had the pleasure yet. No. Well, was she at the presentation?
She was.
Yeah.
She's unbelievable in terms of focus, work ethic, relationships. I'm not concerned about the staffing because what I see within that particular department is every year the quality of ESL teacher improves. She also puts a lot of time into professional development and expanding all their capacity. And like we've also had discussions in terms of even moving beyond ESL, like Orton Gillingham certification for all of her teachers. So I don't think we're going to have a problem with staffing and filling those positions with highly qualified people.
I really liked a lot of the verbiage in the plan. I really like the development of like soft skills to develop. I think there might be some concerns from parents about not. I feel like we're shining a spotlight on these soft skills. Great, they're going to talk about academics, and I think we really need to let people know that we're not letting the academic piece go to the side. We're kind of giving our students more tools in the toolbox to be more successful outside. Giving them that critical thinking piece, that community well-being piece to it. Because I just when I was reading through it, I'm like, I know when I was running for school committee, a big thing a lot of parents were talking about was like, get those test scores up, like focus on the academics, make sure those are good, because that's like what parents are really concerned about, and none of that is mentioned in the triennial plan. It's more focused on these softer skills, which I love it. I'm a big supporter of that. I just want to assure people at home that that's not what this is all about. It's more of adding instead of realigning. We're keeping these things together. We're having them together.
Well, there's a lot of hidden things in here as well. I mean, a successful school district, I mean, really it's a product of successful tier 1 instruction. We can look at intervention for kids and we look at other things, but really what we need to look at is having our teachers perform at absolutely the highest level. If we get that down and we nail that down, we don't have to have intervention. We don't have to go back and look at remediation. There's a lot of things we don't have to do. Also, there's like things in here, and Dr. Sears had sent me a question about the benefits of transition to world language at the elementary level versus the library program. And we're not necessarily jettisoning that program, but we are making that shift. But if you look at a world language program and you say, well, how does that actually help kids like in ELA or language acquisition, reading, writing? There's a huge focus on grammar that you don't necessarily see in our ELA program. So it actually, shifting to that component of the triennial plan actually helps everything else by building out that grammar piece and that way of focusing on language and language acquisition, which is a little different than what we might be doing in a standard like reading lesson or writing lesson. So there's a lot of facets that don't necessarily come out on the surface that are actually embedded in the underlying philosophy driving the plan.
So this type of plan is not just going to help English learners, secondary learners. It's going to help all children with grammar issues and speaking issues and literacy issues.
Absolutely. And when you look at building out a world language program, and the advantage that we have at the elementary level is we have so many kids that speak another language. If you're teaching on, let's just say, for example, Portuguese, and you're just teaching kids Portuguese, and there's no typical peer that speaks Portuguese to have a conversation with, it's a completely different animal. We're fortunate in the fact within our district, we actually have kids in the classroom, if you're teaching a lesson in Portuguese or trying to teach something, that can speak right back and forth. Now, when you're building, our English-speaking students' Portuguese skills, you're also going to develop an interaction with that student, and you're going to build the English skills of the Portuguese student. So it's self-supporting, and it just helps it from a number of different angles of building all skills on both sides of the fence. And another thing, Dr. Sears sent me a lot of great questions. I thought one of them was, why aren't we doing Spanish? Because that's a predominant language within the country that might be more beneficial longer term. Portuguese has always been the language we thought was the best fit for Stoughton. But going back and looking at Spanish and Portuguese, they're both their root languages are Latin. So even if you choose to pursue Spanish at the middle school, because that program remains intact, you're going to have a huge advantage having spent that other time learning Portuguese with the same basic roots. when you move into the middle school and say you choose to transition to Spanish. So it's building the mind, really, and both building facets of the mind that you wouldn't get just studying in your own language or communicating in your own language.
And we're doing a lot of this at the elementary school level, starting out, correct?
Yeah, we would be putting this in place in 2 fiscal years. So this coming year is a prep year. We still need to go out. And this last year we did some site visits for schools that offer different formats for offering world language or transitional bilingual, or there's a ton of different models. This coming year we want to do some more site visits, which school districts that have successfully implemented an elementary world language program, see what they look like, and then we'll figure out and we'll scaffold out exactly what it's going to look like when we bring it online. I mean, I think for most districts, the biggest challenge would be finding personnel to do it. I think we're already in a position where we have that, so we can really focus on the details and not so much worry about who we're going to get and then how we're going to get all the training in place.
That's awesome. That was like one of the biggest concerns was just like, it's a great plan if we have the people in place, and that's really awesome to hear that Stoughton is lucky enough to have those people.
Yeah, and for all aspects of our plan, I mean, it's all about having good people. Good people, knowing what the expectations are and being able to get the job done.
Other questions?
I definitely.
I think that you're muted there.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Karen.
Jillian, are you all set? Do you have more? Because I have a bunch.
Yeah, no, you can go ahead. I mean, mine are really conversational pieces, so you might hit on some stuff that I haven't hit on yet. Go ahead.
All right. So how much is this going to cost us each year? Like in 26, 27, 28, have you guys put together how much more this is going to cost us?
So
this district.
So when we look, if you look at the overall cost of the plan, a lot of things offset. Like for instance, with the special education program, I mean, we're going to do a complete revamp. But if you look at, for instance, the cost of hiring the team chair school psychs, like adding some positions and splitting those positions, although we're going to incur the salaries of like new team chairs, that's going to more than offset our current contracted services costs. So we're not going to lose money. In fact, I think we'll actually come out ahead putting that particular piece in place. When you look at, for instance, transitioning to the world language program, we do have the library specialists at the elementary level, and we can look at transitioning those positions, those FTEs, to offset the cost of the world language teachers. We are also looking at having some decreases in enrollment potentially with the shelters closing. So we were built out to have services for 120 additional kids that may or may not be with us next year. Now, if those numbers come down, we can look at transitioning some of those people in. We can also look at collapsing out the 4 FTEs. We have library media specialists, and we can completely offset the cost. So, really, it depends. We don't see a huge additional cost bringing the plan online, because where we choose to invest in some areas, we can offset with reductions in other areas or decreases in contracted services that are necessitated by the fact that we don't have people in positions currently. So we don't see it as a huge additional cost. The other thing with these plans, if we find that, things didn't go the way we wanted them to go, we don't necessarily have to follow through if we can't fund it. We can look at ways to do workarounds, or we can scale back, or we can push things into the future. So if financially, given our situation, we don't have the capacity to move forward on something, or we're not realizing the net gains we thought, by best example, putting in the team chairs, we would have to adjust. And that's something that when you read through Dr. Bennett's goals or what we did with the last round of plan, you'll see we actually make adjustments based on progress we made implementing the plan, or realistic financial constraints that are in place based on what we have to do or how we have to allocate our funding.
So you're looking at 4 new positions in special education, or 5?
It depends. He's going to split the positions. Some of the positions we had in the budget we didn't fill, and we may have to create additional positions. Now I would have to have Ed here to say specifically how that's going to shake out, But when we looked at the amount of money that we committed to contracted services, because we couldn't fill the positions and we didn't have the capacity to do all the testing in-house, I am completely confident that we're going to come out ahead in that scenario. So even if we have to hire, say, 4 positions, we're going to save at least that much money in not having to provide contracted services. Because when you move out of your district to provide those kind of services, it's much more expensive than if you keep it in-house.
Okay, so are they going into Unit A? Is that where those
Unit A.
or will they be administration?
No, they're Unit A. They provide services to kids and work directly with kids, so they would not be in Unit B.
So they'll be Unit A, 4 new additions possibly in Unit A.
And
All right.
some of the positions are new positions. They're simply positions that we haven't filled.
Mm-hmm. All right, so when I was looking at, it was page 23, and it talked about adding a full-time position for the counseling services for the multilingual counselor.
Yep.
That's an increase of 0.6. 4 full-time Unit A to hire or reassign world language. So we're not talking special ed, just world language teachers. And then another one in ESL and an SEI coach.
Yep.
Another one. So that's going to be 5.6 on top of maybe the 4 that will come from the special ed, possibly 9 new into Unit A. Am I reading that?
Going back to the special education component, some of the positions there are positions we haven't filled in the past that are currently budgeted. Also, by filling those positions, we actually decrease our contracted services obligation from outside the district. So although we might be adding a position up to 4 positions, Ed Clark would have to talk to that. We're actually going to decrease the amount of money we allocate to get the job done. So we can pay contracted services to somebody else and pay for all that additional administrative overhead and whatever else goes with it. Or we can bring all that back into the district and pay less money, but we have to hire people to do it. If we look at, and this is something I touched upon earlier, if we look at the world language component, we did in fact see our overall enrollment go down for ELS this year. And that's because we had 120 kids approximately in the shelters that we were providing services to. Now, we may have the potential to shift positions from that department into this program. We have the teachers with the correct licenses and speak the requisite languages to go ahead and make that happen. The 4.0 FTEs may be none. They may be 4. We don't know. That's why we put in it. Their positions, there will be reallocations or hires. So also with those positions, they're going to be offset by 4 other positions that currently provide specials at the elementary level as we move out of one program into another. So in terms of the FTE count, if we collapse the other positions, the increase is 0 for that particular piece. So also looking at the SEI coach, the last triennial plan, we had 2 SEI coaches in that plan. We did not fill them because we did not have the financial capacity to do it. Same thing with this plan. That's something that aligns with what we're doing at other levels in terms of the overall coaching model. If we can't afford to do it, we won't do it. And you'll notice that all these places where we're potentially adding FTEs with the exception of SPED, it's never in the first year of the triennial plan because we didn't have the capacity to build out the budget and bring it to the committee in order to fill the position. So what you're going to see is any place other than the SPED, which is rolling the school psych team chair piece out, you're not going to see us adding FTEs because we have to be able to understand what our budget is, and we have to be able to bring it to the committee and then bring it to the town for approval.
Okay, so on top of the 4 that might be in special ed, whether it's offset or not, and another 5.6 for the multi-language learners, also on page 24, there's another 4.0 full-time employees for bilingual paraprofessionals. So that's another 4 employees that they're looking to onboard in 2027, again into Unit A.
Paraprofessionals aren't in Unit A. They're not teachers.
Oh, they're their own.
Yeah.
They're their own contract.
Yep.
But still, it'll be 4 more employees there also.
Well, the thing about paraprofessionals in that department at that point in time, we'll look and see what our enrollment numbers are. When we were building this out and we were doing all of our initial pieces, we build out based on the kids that we have in the system. So we were looking at our current enrollment. That enrollment with the shelters collapsing, or I should say being closed down, we may not be required to have those positions. The other thing with ELE and SPED in particular, I mean, we can talk about positions, but we have to provide the services. I mean, it's not really a question of what we want to do. We have to get it done. The more that we do in-house, the less it costs us, because anything where we're sending kids out of district, we're having services provided by people that aren't employees of the district through contracts. It's exponentially more expensive. So with the ELE piece, if we can meet all of our service requirements without needing paraprofessionals, we will. If we find that our enrollment goes back up, we have more L's and FELs, we have to provide the services, we need people in the classrooms. I mean, it is what it is. This is an ideal plan moving forward. All the pieces are meshed, they're all aligned. That being said, in the past, if we don't have the physical capacity to do it, we won't do it. We'll just adjust our plan. You're going to see the plan change every year because sometimes we're going to accomplish what our goals were. Sometimes we're going to have the financial capacity to follow through on everything we want to do. Sometimes we're not, at which point we'll rewrite the plan, and that's how we'll move forward.
So there are not necessarily new employees like the other ones, but on page 37, it talks about redesigning administrative structure. So it looks like reviewing the job responsibilities, updating the administrative job, reassigning administrators. It looks like new titles are going to be added. Do you know what new titles?
So what's
for SPED? Is there going to be any more assistant superintendents or directors?
We're not adding administrative positions to special education.
There's zero administrative positions.
We're not adding any
Unit A or B.
In restructuring that department, we will not be adding any administrative positions. I can say definitively.
Okay, and no unit B? Well, there might be more unit Bs.
No.
Just unit A.
With special education, it's just unit A. And it's very specific in terms of what it is. And those positions are directly offset by a decrease in contracted services costs.
Okay. Now, on a lot of the action plans, most of it is actually just time consuming.
Yep.
A lot. It's a lot of work. And I appreciate all of the work that's going to be done because it sounds great. But a lot of it has to do with funding, although there's no numbers, like there's no saying what the funding is. So there has to be some kind of budget increase in order to do all of this stuff.
So
has there been like even just a total of the next 3 years?
So even if we put in funding, we're letting us know there's a funding component. So that when we're building out the budget for that given year, we're looking at the triennial plan and see what costs what. Now, just because we've identified funding as a requirement doesn't mean that we need an increase in funding. And for example, if professional development is required and there's a funding component to it, what we would do is we would look within our existing budgets and we would allocate that money up front and encumber it. So it's not available for other things that come up. Now, if we're adding positions, if we know we're adding a position, that funding is something we'll have to put in place. But really the funding component is for us to understand where we need to go when we're building the budget and ensure the fact that the funding's in place up front. And we're not, 3 months into year 2 of the triennial plan and trying to figure out how we're going to pay for PD or how we're going to pay for something we need, materials and supplies or whatever. So there are a lot of things already built into the budget that we would just encumber up front for the plan and don't necessarily require us to seek additional funding, even though funding is indicated within the plan itself.
I just can't quite, and maybe just because this budgeting is new to me for schools, but I know that we've been in a budget freeze for 2 years. We can't afford to buy the supplies that we needed last time, the paper and that sort of stuff. We didn't do that order because we didn't have the money for it. Now I know we increased our budget this year by 3.8%, which is what the select board wanted us to do. And they indicated that next year they want it to be less than 3.8. thought, if I remember off the top of my head, it might have been 2.5 that the select board wanted us to increase by. And I can't see how we can increase the budget by less than 3.8% that the select board wants and still be able to do a triennial plan, especially since we've been in this budget freeze. That it feels like we're already behind and we have some really grand ideas here and they sound wonderful and I want all of this stuff for our kids. I'm just very concerned that this is going to cost, this is a pie in the sky. Like, I don't know how we can fund it, even though you're saying there are offsets. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around it.
So if we get to the point in the budget season, and everything in here is designed to have, if it requires money, to allow a budget cycle to run first. The special education positions weren't designed like that because we know the offset for contracted services will cover those positions. I think we're going to save more money than we invest. I think we're going to save a significantly larger amount of money than we invest in this. Every place else allows the full budget process to run. If we can't afford to do these things, we won't do them. So if we lack the capacity to fund a component of the triennial plan, we'll amend the triennial plan. And we'll figure out how to move the program forward and lay the groundwork for completing it at a future date. If we have to, if there are parts of this we have to suspend, but they're important to us, we can push them into the next triennial plan. When you look at the ELE component, this is the third triennial plan that has a built-out ELE component because that's where we're experiencing the most growth, and that's where we have to continue to focus until those numbers stabilize and we have our programs built out the way that we want them. So if we have a fiscal component, we'll come back and revisit the plan and figure out what we're going to do. I think we're going to have enough offsets that nothing in here is going to be a budget breaker. I think we're going to be just fine. That being said, if we experience a downturn in revenue and we can't afford these things, we figure out other ways to do it, or we just, there are things that we'll have to put off moving into the future.
And are all of those action points, are all of those things you just said, is that conveyed to the CPAC, the LPAC, the school committee? Is that relayed, or is that something that you guys are saying internally, hey guys, we wanted to, the school committee approved this really great 3-year plan, but we can't do it?
So it's been my experience working here, and this will be my 5th or 6th triennial plan. There are things where we haven't funded, and there are things where we put things off, or we design workarounds. But the heart and soul of all the different components we've always been managed to pull off. We've always managed to bring the plan forward. Sometimes we have to adjust. Sometimes we don't do everything we want to do, but we always find a way to get it done. I feel the same way about this plan. And even though there are positions within the plan itself, when I look at our capacity to fund them and bring it forward without having a substantial increase for the town in terms of funding the Stoughton Public Schools, I feel really good about it. I don't think we're going to have issues unless we have bigger issues than we currently have, and we can't fund our basic, sound basic education. I think we're in a good position. Especially the other thing is with the town, if they have the capacity to give us what they need, they do. I think we've been very responsible fiscally with what we provide, the education we provide our kids. There have been years where we've had funds left over, we've given them back. There are times we need a little bit more, and we ask the town. But what we do, we're going to be fiscally responsible. When we built out the plan, we didn't see this as being an anchor on the Stoughton Public Schools budget. I think we can absolutely pull this off, and we have to adjust, we will. I mean, it's not more complicated than that.
Do you think that we would be able to pull it off if the select board tells us that we need a budget that's less than 3.8%, like we had this year?
So the select board doesn't tell us what our budget is. The Stoughton Public Schools establishes its budget and brings it to the town to be voted. So we can play games with numbers with the town, and we can have conversations. We absolutely want to be a team player. We absolutely want to work what's best for Stoughton. But the Stoughton Public Schools and the school committee determines what budget we're going to bring forward, and that's what we do. So
can you just explain can you just do like a quick rundown of how that works?
So
we do our budget, and they tell us how much over last year's budget we should be, and then we give it to the finance committee?
So you determine your own budget.
Just for people who are also listening too.
The school committee votes their own budget. It's not a budget that, the Board of Selectmen can vote against, anybody can vote against. Well, I mean, they can do their own vote and say we vote against it. The finance committee can, but in the end, the school committee takes it to town meeting floor and the town votes it. I mean, nobody's really telling you what your parameters are. Now, should we be having conversations and figuring out what's available funds are there for us to build? Absolutely. Should we be talking to the town? Should we work with the finance committee? All those things. Absolutely. And the finance committee over the years has been absolutely wonderful to work with. But nobody, you're going to determine what you need. You're going to bring it forward to the town at town meeting, and they're going to make a determination whether they have confidence in the fact we're spending their money wisely, and they should give us what we need in order to educate the kids. I mean, do we want to have a completely aligned process with the town? Absolutely. Do I have confidence in the fact we can get there? I sure do. Have we always been there? No, we haven't. But the school committee sets the budget, votes the budget, and what you determine to be our needs is what moves forward. Ideally, that aligns with what the town thinks we should have and the capacity of the town to fund us.
So you're confident that this triennial plan, I know I'm kind of holding you to it, but I just want to feel confident voting it, that it's not going to be more, it's not going to increase our budget so much, because it sounds great, but it looks like it's really going to bring our budget up so much. I don't want to have to ask for a Prop 2.5 override because this plan is bringing us to like 7.5%. And now, you understand what I'm saying?
So we've been looking at the budget projections and what we're going to need over the next few years. I mean, I just went to a federal grants conference and we spent almost the entire conference talking about the impact of what's going on in Washington, D.C. on what our grant funding streams are going to look like and our capacity to sustain programs. I mean, programs we've had for decades. When we built this plan, we were well aware of the fact that we're going to have some tight years ahead, but we're still completely confident in the fact that we can do this without this ballooning the district's budget, because of the fact that we believe where we invest in some areas, we'll reap rewards in other areas, particularly from contracted services. We also believe, given the fact that our L population, we're expected to go down a bit, will allow us to reallocate positions and fill the majority of those world language positions internally. If that's not the case, it's not the case. It means that we're picking up kids, we're picking up additional L's, say that population grows again. But that will also generate revenue for the Stoughton Public Schools because we'll be picking up more kids to generate Chapter 70. And if they're L's, there's additional category which generates more funds. So if the number doesn't grow too much, where we're adding classroom teachers as well, that actually allows us to afford to add like an ELA teacher, another teacher, without incurring an additional cost of the town.
All right, so you're satisfied that this isn't going to I'm just concerned with all of the new full-time positions, and I know that the budget has been tight, and we've already put a lot on the taxpayers. I mean, the schools have put a lot on the taxpayers, and they've been so generous with us, and they've been so amazing. I want to make sure that this new plan that we have going into place, administration, superintendent, assistant superintendents are confident that this is not going to be a larger burden on our taxpayers.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, then I am confident. Thank you very much for all of that.
Thank you, Karen. Jen, I think I saw you come off mute earlier. Did you have some questions?
Yeah. I know, Jonathan, I sent you a bunch of questions. I'm going to say, I know I'm still have a concern about Portuguese being the language. I just don't think it's global enough. And I know you talk about grammar, but how kids gain grammar is different in each language, and each language has different grammar. And I think that we should be offering a language like Spanish or Mandarin or something that's more global than Portuguese. I know a lot of our people in town speak Brazilian Portuguese, but I don't know if a kid left Stoughton and went to Easton, how Portuguese isn't gonna be it. And I don't know if that's the language we should introduce. I do know with this plan that things can change if we realize it's not working. And I know that, but it's still, that's probably my big concern. It's definitely some of the stuff with the ELL, the English language learners.
Well, the other thing we can do is we can bring Dr. Quilly back because I mean, she's a doctorate in language acquisition. She's brilliant. And we can have an open discussion and talk about it. I mean, we're giving ourselves a year to figure out how that piece goes down. I mean, we think we have a lot of the pieces of the puzzle in place at this time, but you know, we're not completely sure what it's going to look like on our end because there's still a lot of work we have to do. I mean, last year we did 2 complete site visits. We plan on doing a few more this year just to see what other people have done that have implemented similar programs, where they found success, where they found challenges, to try to mitigate our learning curve so that the program that we put in place up front is close to being what it needs to be without having to stumble through the whole process of figuring out what works and what doesn't work. That being said, you know, we've got a lot to learn. And, you know, I'd love to have her come in and talk to you about the advantages. I also want to say that we've been talking about Portuguese as a language now and bringing it into elementary for probably 5 years. And overall, I feel like it's been very supported by the community. We actually had it in the last triennial plan, and it was cut the day before the plan went to committee. And that was a fiscal wedetermination. But what we want to do look actually very similar to what we plan on doing here. And where we're at now, we're in a much better position to do it than we would have been 3 years ago.
And John, on page 31 of the plan, it kind of has a breakdown of what the native languages of the students are in Stoughton. It looks like Portuguese is like predominantly more than Spanish, and additionally, like because you said we already have our staff in place, it's easier to do it this way and more.
Yeah, but I'm wondering how many of them are Brazilian Spanish and Portuguese. I'm
Well,
sorry. How many are Portuguese?
Yeah, amazing point, Jen. John, is there a split with that?
Well, Dr. Cooley, I don't have those exact numbers in front of me. Normally, I'm more prepared, but I was out boating earlier, and I had a problem getting my boat off the ramp because it was crowded, so I did not do any prep before this meeting.
My guess, it's most likely Brazilian Portuguese. If I had to venture a guess of my years in Stoughton, that's the language set.
So with the Portuguese, historically, Portuguese-speaking people from Portugal are the Azores. But we have had a transition to the majority of people moving into our community are from Brazil, a specific area of Brazil. Now, that fact is not necessarily enough to drive building out the program because there's more to it. And where we've struggled even in implementing other things is finding materials, supplies, programs, instructional aids that are in Brazilian Portuguese as opposed to Portuguese. I mean, that's a consideration for the kids in the elementary school. I personally think Brazilian Portuguese would be the way to go because of the fact you can sit and turn and potentially talk to a number of kids in your class in that language. And learning a language, I mean, there's enough similarities. I don't think it would be that big a deal. That being said, we've gone back and forth and we've talked about one or the other. I can't tell you how many times. You know, I probably should know where Dr. Quilly's mind is on this at this point, but you know, as in responding to your email, you know, we've gone back and forth on this innumerable times, and I'm not quite sure where she's at this point. But the good thing is we have a year to think about it, and we haven't locked in. And looking at the kids sitting next to you, I mean, do I think we'd be a better venue? Yes. I'm actually going to defer to her because she does have a doctorate in language acquisition. It is her area of specialty. But we do have some time to think about it. We need to look at some more programs. We have to look and see what programs are out there that we can bring online, you know, for our teachers to utilize. There's a lot to it. I think we should have a very good idea, you know, potentially by Christmas. I think we have 2 site visits scheduled for the fall, tentative site visits. I'm sure there'll be a few more, but we can come back and we speak directly to that. And that is a fluid part of this whole conversation.
I have a couple more questions. I want to make sure you guys are satisfied with your. I don't want to interrupt Jen if you still have more questions.
No, I'm all set. Thank you, Karen.
All right.
Karen, I would like to know if Armando has any questions first before you begin.
Yeah.
It looked like he came off mute for a little bit at one point. So Armando, I don't know if there you are. Did you have any questions?
Yeah, well, actually, there were a couple of points, but John addressed them. One of the things about the plan is that you go back and reevaluate, assess, adjust. go back yearly. So as far as the education, if the kids are not going in the right direction, it'll be adjusted. As far as the budget, it'll be adjusted also. I didn't see the plan as something that's fixed in stone. It's flexible enough that adjustments can be made as necessary. And the other aspect, what Jennifer was saying, I agree. Spanish is more popular, but I believe Portuguese is the third most spoken language in the world. English, Spanish, and Portuguese. And the difference between Portuguese from Europe and Portuguese from South America are so similar. Portuguese from Brazil, landing in Lisbon, Europe, Portugal, would have no problem with the language whatsoever. The pronunciation will be different. The Portuguese language speakers in Portugal will know that that person is from Brazil because of the way pronunciation. There'll be words whether you're saying tu as opposed to você. Brazil use você, Portugal use tu, but small adjustments. I mean, there are some gutchos where some words in Brazilian that's well, there's some words in Portuguese that's just similar everyday term. If you use in Brazil, it can be seen as an insult, and I won't go into that. But they're so similar, there shouldn't be a problem. And the other aspect of it is try to find textbooks and additional assistance in European Portuguese around here. It's hard. I've tried to brush up on my Portuguese, which is really poor, and trying to find a European one because my background is more European than Brazilian. But it's hard. You find the textbooks, you find the literature, you find everything else in Brazilian Portuguese, at least here. So I don't see. It would be wonderful if the folks are more aligned with European Portuguese from the Azores, but then we have a lot of Brazilians that are obviously Brazilian Portuguese. But the difference between the two languages, well, I wouldn't even call them two languages. They're the same language. They're pronounced differently. Some words are different, but no one in Portugal is going to get lost in the language in Brazil, and no one in Brazil is going to get lost in the language in Portugal. They're just that close. And as for Jonathan's point with Spanish, the grammar is close enough. I don't, but I know my parents and my elder siblings speak Portuguese from Europe and Spanish back and forth. Novellas. My mother loved watching the Spanish novellas. She didn't watch that because she knew Spanish. She watched that because she knew Portuguese. And it was similar enough after just watching it alone without going to learn it in Spanish. She was able to pick up and enjoy those Spanish novellas on television for years. So I'm not too concerned about these issues that have been brought up as far as language, as far as budget. And Karen, we do control the budget and we can cut it if we need to. And we've done it. We've done it. Even you've been with us for a year. You've seen how we've gone through the budget. I wouldn't be too concerned about it either. We make adjustments as we proceed forward. And I think the school committee in the last 2 years anyway has done a fairly decent job. And I've voted for budgets that were not approved by the rest of the school committee and vice versa in the process. But we always managed to get through it. We always managed, in the last 2 years anyway, the last two budgets, we've always managed to come to an understanding, even with the town and and most of the members of the finance committee, the overwhelming majority of the finance committee. So I'm not concerned either. I really think we should concentrate in the educational aspects and put together the best plan, which I believe it's been done, that we can for our community. Then everything else will adjust and adapt as we proceed. It's a 3-year plan. It's not going to be implemented tomorrow and was set in stone for the next 3 years. It'll be adjusted as other plans were. That's all I have to say.
Great. Thank you, Armando. Karen, you had a few more questions?
Yeah, so Jen, I'm with you. I think that Spanish is much more versatile in in pretty much everywhere. So if kids do transfer out or they transfer in, certainly Spanish or even French is much more common. So I would agree with you that I think Spanish would be a better choice. You know, whether we get a say or not, I don't know, but I would agree with you. Definitely, I've grown up in Stoughton. I know people who have, I don't speak Portuguese, I speak some Spanish. I've had lots of friends who are Portuguese who said, I have no idea what they were talking about because they were speaking Spanish. So you know, you might be able to learn some things. You know, if you know Spanish, you might be able to know a little bit of Italian. But it's not really the same. But I definitely agree with Jen that I think Spanish would have been a better choice. I would be very interested to hear what Ms. Quealy has to say about that, even though Portuguese might be more prevalent in Stoughton, given just that we're not training kids to just be in Stoughton. We're training them to hopefully move along from Stoughton into other areas. I think it would be better for them. I have a question about Stoughton Academy. John, I thought Stoughton Academy was going to be, that's going to be for those that are listening and those that will listen. Stoughton Academy is going to be the kind of a continuation of the school day and integrated also into our night program. My understanding with Stoughton Academy when we were initially talking about it was that it was self-sufficient. But I see that Stoughton Academy has actually been added into the triennial plan and that it requires some funding from our budget. And to Armando's point, I am always concerned about budget. I never kind of just put it aside and say, you know, it always works out. You know, I'm definitely concerned about budget, so that's why I ask the questions. So, John, maybe you can help me out with funding for Stoughton Academy.
So we're completely restructuring Stoughton Academy. So there will be components that could be looked at as an extension of the regular school day to make it more accessible to students that may need for credit recovery. But going back and looking at the additional components that we want to add, everybody in Stoughton Academy actually has to pay tuition.
Right.
So if through the triennial plan, we add specific components related to English language acquisition, which we plan on doing, they would only actually run if people sign up for the class and pay tuition. So overall, even though we did add funding as a key, because there will be a cost, we're not sure that will be necessarily a huge cost for us. It might be something where we're providing training. I mean, I'm not really sure. Because it is a wild card, there may be some seed money required to get it off its feet. We did put that in. But I don't anticipate any kind of sustained cost with respect to Stoughton Academy. It's just one of those things that you want to put a note right there so that you're looking at it just in case. You don't want to ignore it. But, you know, if we're offering courses in Stoughton Academy and people aren't signing up for them, we're not going to offer the course. Or we may offer it every other semester or however they choose to structure the program.
So is Stoughton Academy completely separate? Or is there going to be some classes immediately after the end of the high school day that will now move over into Stoughton? Because that was my understanding, was that some of our high school students might actually be able to take some classes at like 3 o'clock at Stoughton Academy. And so that would be included with high school. So is that where the funding is going?
Stoughton Academy is its own entity. It's its own program. I believe they have their own code now with the Department of Ed. I know there was just a shift. I'm not part of that process. That's something the superintendent's taken on along with Ms. Miller. But they are in fact their own entity. There's been a lot of talk about having it flow from the regular school day. That being said, if a student enrolled in Stoughton Academy, they would still have to actually pay for the course.
Okay.
So it's one of those things.
So it is self-funded.
Yeah, it has to be self-sustaining, although the district can support it. Like for instance, with software, I mean, if they want to have an online platform, we can extend all the platforms that we use internally. There's a lot we can do to support. But in the end, if you enroll, there is a tuition component, and the tuition does offset our costs and pay for the teachers and everything else. So, and the administrative costs that go with it. So the district's not going to incur a cost by restructuring Stoughton Academy. But there are things that we wanted to do for us, which is what you see in the plan. We think it can better serve this community with some tweaking, which you see in the triennial plan.
And you don't think that that's going to impact the budget that much?
I don't think it's impacted
funding for
at all.
Stoughton Academy? Not at all.
No.
Okay. Just I saw it where it said funding for Stoughton Academy in I think at least 3 places. So
Well,
that was a question for me.
You put that there
Just to
because
support.
if you're doing a complete revision of a program, you might incur cost. You might need some seed cost to put a class in place to start joining enrollment or whatever it might be. You don't know, but there is no sustained cost with respect to Stoughton Academy because it is self-funded. So that was when it was first started. That was the intent, and that's never changed.
Okay. All right. I have an unrelated question to Stoughton Academy, but I don't want to move on if some of my other school committee members wanted to continue on Stoughton Academy. So I want to leave it at that to see if maybe someone else had a question there. Jillian, Jill? No. Okay. All right.
I just want to be careful, Karen, because the agenda is about the triennial plan. So I just want to make sure that we're sticking to that specific topic. And if you want
Stoughton
Stoughton
Academy is
Academy,
listed.
okay,
Stoughton
just
Academy is
making sure
listed
that
in the
it's
triennial
the
plan.
questions are directly related to the triennial plan.
Every
because you
question
said it
I've asked is part of this triennial plan.
understood. You just said it was an unrelated question. That's why I was
Unrelated to
verifying.
Stoughton Academy, I said.
Okay, got it. Thank
So
you.
part of the vision of the graduate, and I've talked about this before, I just want to make sure it's still out there. Part of the vision of the graduate is accepting full ownership of their behavior, emotions, and decisions in all areas of life, which sounds lovely that our kids should take responsibility for their emotions, which, they're minors, but sure. Their behavior, of course, their decisions, of course, but we are dealing with minors. And I have seen blowback on this where teachers and administrators, and I've had personal experience of this, said, well, your student needs to take full responsibility even though they're asking for extra help and not receiving it. So I want to make sure that it's at least on record that I think that this taking personal responsibility in all areas of their life can be used against children. And I would like some assurances from administration that that is not the intent, that's not what we expect our staff to be doing. It is to teach responsibility, but not to skirt responsibility of our staff to teach and to provide an education and support for our students. So can you just speak on that?
Sure.
Thank you.
I mean, the staff is there to support kids.
It should
I mean,
be.
we're looking for kids to take responsibility for what they say they do, everything else. I don't necessarily have an issue with this. I just think I think it's what we try to do as parents. I think it's the schools just trying to help kids develop themselves as well-rounded human beings that take ownership for what they do, are responsible. I see it as part of our mission. I mean, yeah, I can't see that we're not going to do the right thing when it comes to helping kids develop and support them in, personal growth. And
So this isn't being put in here to allow staff to not provide services for kids such as extra supports. It's there to say, we need you to take responsibility, but we still are here for you. And it's not going to be kind of thrown in their face as almost like well, you need to do more, not us.
well, I think we help kids. I mean, I think most of our faculty, if not all of our faculty, try to do the right thing and support children. I don't really look at it the way that you're looking at it. I don't see it as something where we're going to use it against kids.
Oh, it has been. That's why I'm asking, because
Well,
I've seen it. It has been.
Well,
That's why I asked.
that's not experience I've had. I generally see people trying to do the right things for kids. I mean, I know as a teacher, sometimes, you need to do your homework. We need to work on getting the homework in. I don't see it as something we use to persecute children. I mean, why would you be in the business if, you're going to take that position?
I couldn't agree with you more.
No.
I definitely agree with you on that. So then my last one would be, I can't remember if at the last meeting, I think Jillian brought this up, the book that you guys are using, the new classroom, Wait, I lost my page on it. The New Classroom Instruction That Works. Is that the book that we are?
That is.
Yeah. It's listed in here. We're going to give it to all the K-1 teachers and then eventually to all the new teachers. And I think, Julie, I think you had asked for it on tape, like books on tape. Like I would like for all the school committee members to have a copy of this so that we know where. So is that possible that while you're ordering these books that we can order one for each school committee member?
I already have one.
Yeah, I think that we got them.
All
Yeah,
right,
so-
and then, yeah,
Well, app will get your book. Love to get your book.
I got
Right.
mine.
so one for everyone. And then I would like to have 3 more because within the next 3 years, we will have 3 new school committee members. So we should have 3 in a library for onboarding for the new school committee members that'll be coming in a year and then in 2 years.
Sure.
So we can order hopefully a couple extra on, 3 extra on there.
Absolutely.
All right, great. Thank you for all of it. I appreciate it.
Any other questions for Jonathan? All right, at this moment, can I have a motion to approve the triennial district improvement plan?
I move to vote to approve the triennial improvement plan.
All right, that was made by Jillian. Do we have a second?
I think there's
Second.
somebody, one of the participants has their hand up. I don't know if we call them.
We don't, that's not how we
Okay.
run our school committee meetings. In our
Okay.
regular meetings, we have public comment at the beginning, but otherwise this is, the public is invited to attend. But thank you. I was aware.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, can you say that again? Special meetings, we don't allow public comment? Is that what it is?
I believe so.
We don't know. for
Public comment was not on the agenda for tonight.
All right, I thought it had to be on all agendas. I don't know. John, do you know whether public comment has to be available at all meetings?
We haven't always had it on an agenda, depending on what the agenda is. It tends to be on all the regular scheduled meetings, but you don't have to include it.
All right, I think there's something in our policy that says it. I just don't know if it says special and regular, so we probably should have had that on there. Just for the public.
There is a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, that was Armando. Motion has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Jennifer?
Oh, yes.
Jillian?
Aye.
Karen?
Yes.
Armando?
Yes.
And I vote aye as well. The motion carries 5-0. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion
I'm
to
moved.
adjourn.
All right, give that to Armando second. Jennifer,
Second.
did you want? All right, perfect. That was moved by Armando and seconded by Jennifer. Roll call vote. Jennifer,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Armando,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Motion carries 5-0. The meeting adjourned at 8:31 p.m. Thank you all so much for taking time out of your days for an extra meeting.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. Try to stay cool.
Thank
All right.
you.
Have a great 4th of July, everyone.